Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a really powerful ancient text, one that honestly has some surprising relevance for our lives right now. We've looked at the scripture itself, Psalm 29, and some great analysis on it. Our goal really is to unpack its message about God's power and see how that understanding can maybe encourage obedience and, strengthen our faith.
It's a fantastic song for that, Psalm 29. It's one of David's, and it's just famous for this incredibly vivid picture of God's voice, especially how that voice shows up in nature and the powerful forces we see. And it really does two things. Calls us to worship, yes, but also celebrates God's authority. It's quite something.
Okay, so let's unpack this. This psalm begins with a really direct command, doesn't it? It doesn't sort of ease you in.
No, not at all. Right from verses 1 and 2, it's this clear call, give unto the Lord glory and strength, and then worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. And the key thing there, I think, is that worship isn't just, going through motions. It's this deep recognition of who God actually is, giving him the honor he's due because of his identity.
And right after that call to worship, what's the central theme he hits us with? It's pretty immediate.
It is the voice of the Lord. That's the core. And straight away, David connects it to these huge natural events. Upon the waters, it says, then the God of glory thundereth. And again, the Lord is upon many waters. You can almost feel the storm gathering, can't you?
Yeah, you really can. And it builds, right? The description of the voice gets more and more intense.
Exactly. Verse 4 calls it powerful and full of majesty. This isn't a quiet suggestion. It's a force to be reckoned with. And then come the examples, which are just so vivid. Like the voice breaks the cedars of Lebanon, these huge, strong trees.
Right, the iconic cedars.
Yeah. And it doesn't just break them. It makes the mountains, Lebanon and Syrian, skip like a calf. Imagine that kind of power.
That's incredible imagery. What else does the voice do?
Well, it divided the flames of fire, which speaks to this incredible control, doesn't it? Separating fire itself. It shakes the wilderness, specifically Kadesh, known for being vast and empty, making even the emptiness tremble. But then there's this fascinating turn. It also maketh the hinds to calve. It brings life.
Ah, so it's not just destructive power.
Precisely. It's life-giving, too.
Oh.
And it discovereth the forests, like stripping them bare, revealing what's hidden. So it's shattering, yes, but also revealing and even life-generating.
Wow. Showing both sides of that immense power, the breaking and the birthing, like you said. So after painting this picture of immense force, where does David ultimately position God? What's the peak statement about his sovereignty?
That's such a critical point in the song. It culminates in verse 10. The Lord sitteth upon the flood, yea, the Lord sitteth king forever.
Yeah.
Saying this isn't just about one storm that comes and goes. No, God reigns over the chaos, the flood. His kingship is eternal. He's sovereign forever.
Over the flood. That implies control even over the most chaotic forces.
Exactly. Yeah. And that leads directly into the final verse, which is just this profound reassurance after all that power. Verse 11. The Lord will give strength unto his people. The Lord will bless his people with peace. It ends not with terror, but with this promise, stability, blessing.
That's quite a pivot, from earth-shattering power to personal peace.
It really is. It frames the whole psalm beautifully.
So, okay, let's pull back from the storm imagery itself. What's the deeper wisdom David was trying to convey? What was he getting at beyond describing thunder and lightning?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? I think, first off, it reinforces that idea we started with. Worship begins with recognition. David's call to give glory and strength isn't just asking for lip service. It's about truly seeing God for who he is, this incredibly powerful sovereign being, and responding appropriately. It sets our perspective right.
Okay, so recognizing who God is, and what about the voice itself? It's so active in the psalm. What does that tell us about God's involvement?
Well, it definitely hammers home that the voice of God is not small or passive. In a time when people saw divine action in nature very directly, this psalm shouts that God is active, he is powerful, he's engaged with his creation, his voice has tangible effects, he's not distant.
Right. And the specific things affected the cedars, mountains, wilderness. What's the significance of using those natural elements?
That ties into the idea that nature reflects the Creator. David uses these powerful, majestic parts of the natural world, things people in his time would have deeply respected or even feared, to show how creation itself points to God's greatness. The sheer power in nature is just a reflection, a witness to the power of the one who made it. It reminds us that the world points beyond itself.
That makes sense. But then we get to that paradox you mentioned earlier. How does this overwhelming, almost frightening power connect to the promise of peace at the end?
Yeah, that's really the heart of it, I think. The idea that power and peace go together, at least when it comes to God. The very same God whose voice can shake the foundations of the earth is the God who chooses to give strength and peace to his people. It tells us his power isn't wild or random. It's purposeful. It's ultimately protective and aimed at bringing stability and blessing, not chaos, for those who belong to him. It's power under perfect control, used for good.
Okay, so that's the ancient wisdom. Now let's bridge this to today. How can these ideas from thousands of years ago actually make a difference for us? How does this strengthen faith or encourage obedience now?
Great question. I think the first application is quite direct. We need to see beyond the surface of nature. When we see a powerful storm, or maybe just stand in a quiet forest, Psalm 29 invites us to pause, to see more than just weather patterns or trees. Our world often tries to separate the spiritual from the physical, right? This psalm slams them back together. It pushes us toward reverence, seeing God's hand, respecting forces bigger than us. That definitely strengthens faith, and acknowledging that power encourages a posture of obedience.
That's a practical shift in perspective. Okay, and what about that connection between power and peace? Our culture often has a very different view of power. It's about dominance, control. Psalm 29 seems to offer an alternative model.
It absolutely does, and that's the second application. Value strength that brings peace. The psalm shows God's strength isn't for crushing, but for establishing peace. So for us, whether we're leading a company, parenting, or just managing our own affairs, it challenges our definition of strength. Real strength, the godly kind, should ultimately build up, protect, bring stability and peace, not cause harm or chaos. It encourages obedience by giving us a Christ-like pattern for using whatever influence we have. Focus on serving, not dominating.
Using strength to serve and bring peace. That's countercultural. What's next?
The third one builds on that idea of perspective we touched on earlier. Worship is perspective setting. Life throws a lot at us, right? Anxiety, pressure, deadlines. Psalm 29 shows the power of intentionally stepping back to focus on something bigger, taking regular moments for reverence, whether that's formal worship reflecting on God's power in nature or just contemplating his sovereignty. It resets our priorities. It shifts our gaze from our immediate anxieties to God's eternal reign. That actively strengthens faith, grounding it in something unshakable.
So using worship not just as a ritual, but as a way to actively recalibrate our focus.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last one connects to God's voice itself, right? How multifaceted it was, breaking, birthing, revealing.
Exactly. That leads to the final application. Be a voice that brings life, not destruction. Or perhaps be a voice that both clears and creates. God's voice in the psalm isn't one note. It shatters cedars, yes, but it also makes deer give birth and discovers hidden things, brings them to light. So this challenges us with our own voices, our words, our influence, our online presence, how we lead or parent. Are we just tearing things down, or are we also speaking words that bring life, that bring necessary clarity, that reveal truth like light breaking through a forest? Sometimes things do need to be broken down for new growth, but are we doing it purposefully? It encourages obedience by making us stewards of our own power of speech, aiming to reflect God's dynamic, life-giving, and truth-revealing nature.
Wow, that's a powerful call to action for how we communicate. Not just avoiding negativity, but actively using our words to build, reveal, and bring life, mirroring the complexity of God's own voice.
Precisely. So Psalm 29 gives us this incredible picture, a God of, frankly, overwhelming power who commands the elements, yet he's also the source of dependable strength and deep peace for his people. It really pushes us to see his majesty all around us, and then importantly, to try and reflect that same purposeful character in how we live and interact with others.
It's an amazing deep dive into just one psalm, showing how much timeless wisdom is packed in there. So here's something to think about. The next time you witness a powerful storm roll through, or maybe even just experience the quiet power of nature, how will you listen for the voice of the Lord in it? And maybe how will your own voice reflect his character afterward?